Hi, welcome to Pompey Talk, the latest edition from the news in association and partnership with Giant Leap. I'm joined by our esteemed colleagues Neil Allen and Jordan Cross here today to discuss the events of Oxford United 1, Pompey 1. Neil, kick us off. Good result?
Well, yeah, obviously tough place to go. Pompey got a 1-1 draw, keeps up with an unbeaten record, an effective performance, and you think a year ago Pompey would have lost that. 2 years ago they probably would have lost that in those circumstances, but they came back strong and held out comfortably with 10 men in the end.
Was it a difficult start, George? They didn't quite hit their straps, did they?
Well, they actually started well in terms, if you break it down into bits and pieces, the game in the first sort of 15 minutes they actually were dominating, I think up to about 70% possession, but lost their way as a half wore on. Oxford really got on top.
Did that against Luton a little bit as well, didn't they?
Very similar, yeah. Similar to that, actually. Yeah, almost identical. But I would say Oxford were more dominant than Luton were. They got in and created a string of chances, and it could have been Pompey were really holding on. It could have been a few down at the break. They were indebted to Paul Jones, who pulled off a couple of good saves just before the break, particularly from Kemal Roof. Right on the interval as well. But then Pompey came back into the game, got on top, got the goal, looked like they were knocking the door for the second, and then with 10 minutes to go the red card comes for Doyle, quite right too, a second yellow, and there was no arguing that one, and then Pompey were kind of holding on at the end. But I mean, there was a lot of deficiencies in the performance when you look at Atangana. Wasn't at the races. I mean, he came off, he's had a virus, but no surprise to see him not come out for the second half, was it? Matt Clark was given a real difficult time by Hilton. Pompey managed one shot on target across the 90 minutes, and it was 50-50 possession, which is unusual for Pompey this season, but they keep finding a way, and that's what makes you really confident that despite all those, they're probably a 6 out of 10 performance at best, they're getting results in the game, and it's the old, that one about, not being at your best and picking up results. That's the teams that tend to be there at the end of the season.
You touched on the one shot on target, but what a shot, Neil! That was a moment of magic, wasn't it?
I've mentioned it.
Wallace-esque.
Well, I've mentioned that in my match before. Yeah, it's just because obviously when Wallace was here, he was the only one capable we've seen in previous years of getting something out of nothing, a bit of magic to change the game. We saw it at Carlisle, we saw it at home at Exeter. He's been the only player over the years that has been capable of that, and he's gone now, and that's what McGurk contributed. And there's a few players now that can have those moments. We've seen Roberts, we've seen Chaplin, we've seen Bennett, and Saturday it was McGurk, and it came from absolutely nowhere. Pompey weren't even threatening particularly, even though the game had improved after the break. And a stunning goal, the keeper caught the keeper by surprise clearly as well. He didn't know how far it was out, McGurk, but we sort of estimated 35 yards, which I think is quite accurate.
Like a bit of swerve on it.
And it really did came out of nothing, and it changed the game because Pompey were I thought they were dead in bay. There was nothing in them at all. Yeah. And then suddenly Pompey were on top, and then obviously that was checked with the sending off. But one moment has got them a draw and a useful point, and still unbeaten.
And Barton as well. It was a big factor in the game coming on in the second half when Pompey did get on top. It was a first real look at Barton in that role in midfield, and it was a real efficient use of the ball. Just got the ball, slowed it down. It was just like a pendulum, really, just ticking over, moving the ball. And Pompey really got on top in terms of possession. He was the key man for that, and that was a big factor in Pompey getting on top. So, probably preferred playing there than centre half, like he did at Exeter.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting with him because it's his first appearance for Pompey at any level in midfield. Yeah. He played against Exeter in the Johnson Paint Trophy.
He did very well there.
Yeah, at centre half. He never played any pre-season games because he was injured. So he's been completely out of it, and it was a surprise to him in the squad Saturday. First time he's made a squad in the league, and he came on at half time, and he did make an impact. He's a completely different player to Asangana, to Hollands, maybe more similar to Close, who can't get in the squad either. But now with Doyle out for one match.
Just coming on to that, Michael Doyle, red card. First of all, was it?
2 yellows.
No
there was no debate about that. The second one, he's chasing the wide man back, and Kyle Bennett should be he's dipping back with him and should get the challenge in a bit earlier and maybe taking the yellow himself. But he's kind of trying to get his foot in. Then Doyle comes along and does the check, and there was there was no debate about that at all, was there really?
Both fouls on Circum, actually.
Yeah.
Who was actually the outstanding player of the
player
whole match.
I certainly rated when he was at Exeter Circum.
He seemed to give it,
he'd be one that Pompey would want, I would have thought.
Well, he was, I mean, if you looked at Twitter, they meant the love for him in the summer, and he lived up to that one. Kemal Roof, you know, maybe less so, but no Ryan Taylor in the game in the starting 11 either. So I think you probably find that in Hilton and Roof, they're probably the two of the best strikers you're going to come up against. And Matt Clark's got a lot of plaudits this season, and quite right too for the way he's come in. But he was given was one stretch in the first half where Hilton kind of beat him twice, just kind of almost bullied him around a bit. So you know, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because you know Pompey aren't hitting all cylinders at the moment. You can see that at the weekend. But as I referenced earlier, just getting results all the time, it's encouraging.
And Connor Chaplin came off with a shin injury. I've seen something on social media suggesting he's not too bad. Is it any inkling as to whether he's...
Well, we don't know. Obviously, it's still quite fresh after the game, so the manager don't know. But he came off early. But Tubbs came on as well, and Tubbs in the final 10 minutes, he was clearing the ball from his own penalty area. Yeah. He'd been switched to a left midfield really, so they were hanging on.
Never seen him so deep, have you?
Yeah. No, it's some great clearances from there. But Pompey is an attacking unit that they didn't fire too many. Evans was poor, Bennett was poor. Tubbs really was starved of service, wasn't he? And McGirt was the only one of those attacking players that was on it for that game. And again, it was just his bit of magic which got the point.
Nice to see Paul Moody before the game in the Frankie and Benny's getting a
scumming
off none other than Alan Knight, the legend
leading the abuse.
Paul Moody, obviously a local lad from from the area, played around the local leagues, but it's connected with Southampton, aren't they? And we're in there having our pre-match grub, and Paul Moody walks in, and he didn't see Alan Knight, and he said, "Scummer!" He kind of got his head down and ran off to the bar. And then Knight said, "Don't worry, it's me." So,
if a club legend can lead those sorts of abusive chants, we're onto something, aren't we? But just finally, let's wrap it up. In general terms, the start to the season, what we make it, we've got to be impressed by this, haven't we? So far,
second in the league, the only unbeaten team in the league.
It doesn't seem like they've played at their absolute best.
Well, that's the great thing about it, isn't it? They've kind of there's lots of room for improvement in certain areas. I mean, the marquee sign hasn't come in yet, and in terms of attacking prowess, you kind of where could you say Pompey have really kind of fired on all cylinders so far? What game would you say they really?
Dagenham.
The first game, Pitts and Plymouth.
The second half against Morecambe.
Yeah, but you wouldn't really, for actually sort of hitting their straps. They haven't yet, and there's more to come. And as Paul Cook quite rightly said, he said they're a work in progress still. I was really surprised to hear him say last week that he doesn't know his best 11. I think he's kind of playing a bit of a game then. He's probably got a good idea what it is, but it's indicative that he's kind of still tinkering with bits and pieces to get the right formula.
But you look at the goals as well. So many people are scoring goals. You've got McGurk on 3, you've got Chaplin on 4, you've got Roberts on 3, definitely you've got Evans on 2, you've got Bennett on 2. There's goals, and again we go back to the Jed Wallace thing. The over-reliance on Jed Wallace has scored goals as well previous years. This year they've already spread, and Tubbs has got 2 as well, and they've spread quite evenly, aren't they, at the moment? And everyone seems to be having their game. And again, looking at the results so far, they've dropped 2 points away from home in terms of Plymouth, Luton and Oxford. Now that is good.
And
they'll all be up there as well.
You would expect them to be knocking the door. And I mean, the word's getting out now. I mean, there was scouts from Liverpool, Dave Woodfine, who we know from Pompey, they're down at the game at the weekend, and there was a few people around. So people are starting to sniff around for the likes of Connor Chaplin, who's in contract talks at the moment, aren't we? And hopefully he'll be signed in. So get him nailed down, and hopefully we can push on.
Great. Thanks, lads. Thanks for joining us. See you again next time.